Welcome to the Care for Pastors podcast, where we encourage and equip those in ministry to stay healthy for the long haul. I'm your host, Robby Bolden. We've been walking through our series, Healthy Habits of Pastors, exploring the rhythms and disciplines that help sustain us in both life and ministry. Today, we're turning our attention to an often misunderstood topic, the healthy practice of sabbatical. Joining me once again is Pastor Jason Borton. If you haven't heard Jason's first conversation with us back in Season 2, Episode 5, where we talked about Sabbath, I encourage you to go back and give it a listen. Jason shared incredible insight into finding rest and renewal in the Lord. In this episode, Jason opens up about his own sabbatical journey, how after 27 years of ministry, God used an extended season of rest to bring healing, clarity, and renewed vision for both his personal life and his church. We'll talk about the challenges pastors face when advocating for sabbatical and the relational importance of a healthy board and why true rest is worth fighting for. So join me as we jump into this conversation with Pastor Jason Borton. Well, welcome to the Care for Pastors podcast, Jason. Thanks for joining us again.
Absolutely. It's an honor, privilege, for sure.
Now, if you didn't hear Jason the first time, he's on Season 2, Episode 6, and he talked about Sabbath, and he just did an excellent job on helping us learn more about what a Sabbath is and how that has worked in his life. So if you haven't listened to that podcast, I want to encourage you to go back and hear Jason's first podcast with us. He was very helpful to a lot of pastors and church leaders. So Jason, thanks for joining us again, and we look forward to talking to you today about what a sabbatical looks like and hearing your story about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
it's just a privilege to be able to help out however I can. Encourage you guys and ministry to keep going.
Yeah, so it's my understanding, you correct me if I'm wrong, but you went on a sabbatical about 3 years ago, is that correct? And how did you get there, and had you ever had one before?
Yeah, so answer is no, never had a sabbatical. I've been in ministry at that point 27 years and full-time ministry and had not had a sabbatical to that point at all. It definitely was something that I had heard of. I knew other guys that did. I knew other churches that had that as part of their policies and practices. And, and I kind of looking into it, I was really introduced to it by Ron when we first were introduced to each other and began that process of healing for me. And he just asked me, hey, have you ever heard of a sabbatical? And I'm like, well, yeah, I've heard of a sabbatical, but, I don't know. I don't know that I see our church being able or willing to even make that a reality. So, so I began to do some research on it, and a friend of mine, I was not willing to act as a advocate for my own sabbatical, just because it was weird to me asking my board to give me time off for me.
Yeah.
And so I just was really uncomfortable with that. And one of my good friends who is superintendent of schools was like, hey, I'll do it. I'll advocate for you and go to the board. And I know that he met with Ron and talked through a lot of what that looks like and what potentially it could be and all that sort of stuff. And so he did, and the board was like, yes, this is something that Jason needs to do. And I was definitely at a point where I was going to either burn out or sin out. And so it was, you do, sometimes you do extreme things when extreme stuff is happening. So, so we, for whatever reason, I don't want to say that sabbatical is extreme. I don't think it is, but for us, it definitely was going to be a stretch. And so that was July and they were wanting me to go right away. Like, I mean,
Right.
as soon as I possibly could. That didn't work out until October. And so then I took a 3-month sabbatical. So starting October, I don't remember when, it was near the, I think, middle of October until the middle of January. And 3 months was perfect. I think if I had done less, it would not have been enough. And if I had done more, I think I probably could have done more, but 3 months was just the right amount for reset and for, I mean, God's timing was perfect in it. There was just, it was just a lot of so many things that were so good about it. But I know as far as our church, it was kind of shock and awe because, we basically one Sunday got up and started talking about, hey, this is the reality of what's going on in our pastor's life, and this is how we're responding to it. And we didn't really give necessarily a whole lot of details about that. And people that I talked to that have taken sabbaticals and things of that nature were like, it's kind of a 50-50. You can either give lots of details and talk about it, or you can just ask people to be praying and be a part of it. And I think at that time we chose the latter of just going with it, and this is how we're going to respond. For now, 3 years later, our associate just went on his. That was a very different. We did a very different approach to it, and it involved the church much more in the process of setting up his sabbatical, praying through it, keeping them informed, just a whole. Because we've created an entire policy for our church in relationship to sabbaticals for our pastoral staff. So much more administrative, much more guided, much more congregationally and getting them involved. And I think that's been really, really good.
Yeah. Well, Jason, you mentioned something in the beginning of your answer there that we didn't talk about before the interview, but I want to ask you about this. You didn't want to advocate for a sabbatical for yourself. You were kind of sheepish. Why was that?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it was interesting because, Ron asked me, he's like, hey, are you going to advocate for yourself? And he's like, I already know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. And I'm like, and I was like, no. I know I can.
Why?
I could use it, but I think I was. I don't want to say afraid, because I know my board. I mean, I know the guys on the board. Like I don't just get guys on the board that are yes men, and I just don't get guys on the board that are just going through the motions. Like they really are invested in the church. They're really invested in me and the staff, and we're really super choosy about that. So I don't know why. It's not like I wasn't afraid of the guys, because I know they love me. I know they care for me, and I know they want what's best. So maybe it was I was letting fear, in the sense of just the enemy, attack my mind, which was really what was going on anyway. There was so much of that happening anyway. Part of it was just, like I said, the weirdness of asking the board to give me 3 months off. For me, it was just like, I feel like I'm asking them for a pay raise. And again, I mean, it was like, I don't have really a good answer as to why I didn't, other than I just wasn't willing to. And I guess if push came to shove and my friend was not willing to, I knew my friend was willing to, because he already told me he was willing to, not necessarily advocate for a sabbatical. He said, I'm willing to advocate for you however, whatever that looks like. I'm willing to step in and help. And because he's like, hey, if you don't want to talk about it, I'm going to go and talk to the board about it.
Right.
And so, having that kind of a relationship with people is huge. I know that sometimes, we as pastors push back from deep relationships with people because I don't know. I think sometimes people think that, some guys I think that that's going to be shown or seen as favoritism, or that's going to be seen as whatever. And I'm like, no, I've got to have some individuals that I can practice James 5:16 with. Confess your sins, pray for one another so that healing can begin. The prayer of a righteous man is powerful and effective. I've got to have some guys around me that I can go to and trust and know that, you know what, I can share whatever and not feel condemnation or fear or judgment. And I know they're going to be praying for me. And I know that there's no perfect relationship, but I got to have some guys like that. And I do. And those are ones that are back and forth. Like it's Proverbs 27:17 totally. So having somebody like that in my life is huge. I think that's huge. That's huge for any of us in ministry. We've got to have some people like that. Every David needs a Jonathan, and
Yes.
Paul needs a Timothy, and so or Barnabas, and whatever, of just encouraging each other, challenging each other, helping each other. So that was my friend for me. And he went to the board, and the board, was very much, oh my word, yes. They were shocked because they didn't really know. I hadn't been open with them about where I was at. But as my friend was describing, they're like, oh yeah, we can definitely see that. And I don't know. I don't know if I didn't want to make, I guess in some ways I didn't want to make them feel bad either about like, why didn't you guys step up? And I didn't want to do that either. Even though they did. They were like, oh man, we should have seen this. We should have been aware of this. Because for me, like, I'm not saying this braggingly at all, but I make it a massive priority to meet with every one of my guys on the board individually every month. We go out one-on-one together. I try to, all the guys, and why do I do that? Because I'm discipling them. They're discipling me. Sometimes in a meeting, they're not willing to say what they want or need to say or whatever, or maybe something, So I have good relationship with those guys. So it's, again.
Okay. So I think
hope that
helps. Yeah, it does help. As a matter of fact, I think we've kind of swerved into something here, because where I was going with that is a lot of pastors have an adversarial relationship with many of their board members. It's a fight. Mm-hmm. And so what you're telling us is it all begins with a relationship that you have with your guys.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
if a pastor is struggling, because if you can't advocate for yourself with your board like you're talking about that you're able to do, then you've got a bigger issue there than a sabbatical is going to help.
Oh man, absolutely, yeah. They can be part of the problem.
Yeah. So
in the sense of that,
if you've got an adversarial relationship with your board, how do you fix that?
Yeah. Wow.
I know we didn't talk about this, but we've kind of swerved into it because of the
no, it's good
advocacy part of
no, all right, absolutely. I mean, why would even the board say yes to it if they're against me?
Right.
They wouldn't. So I think for me, what I've seen, and not just so of 20 years of being a youth pastor and then 10 years of being in the senior role, one of the things that was huge for me is that one of my priorities has got to be build relationally into the leaders that I have around me, and give them space to air their complaints, give them space to air their concerns, give them space to air whatever they need to air, in the sense of me listening and not judging them, not condemning them, not saying, hey, you're messed up and this is, you're whatever. I mean, like attacking them. It's been just really, really huge. And I guess part of that I learned from this guy that I'm talking about, because, I mean, he's a superintendent and he's got a board, and he's working with guys that aren't even, people that aren't even saved. I mean, people that don't even have a relationship with Jesus. And so, but he makes it a priority to sit down one-on-one with them and give them the opportunity to be heard. Because everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants to be, know that there's some, you're caring about them and you love them. And I think that's part of what even somebody that I may not see eye to eye on, I want them to know, hey, you know what? I care about what you think. I care about what you say, and I'm gonna listen. I think it's important for me to do that. That to me is huge, and that has been huge. And then not only that, it also gives me the opportunity to speak truth into their life. Like I think if I haven't earned the right to be heard, how am I speaking truth into those guys' lives? So that for me is what this is about, is earning the right to be heard, and building relational equity with them, not so that I can get what I want,
Right.
but so that we're on the same page as far as what does God want? How is Jesus moving us? How's the Spirit moving us to do ministry within the context of our church and in our community and in the world? This isn't about what I want. This, yes, I'm leading that team, but if we're always butting heads, I got to go, wait, what am I doing to help or to hinder what God is trying to do through us as a church? And if there's not unity, how's the verse go? That talks about the unity of the brothers.
Yeah.
I can't think of it right now, but there's blessing in that. There's peace in that. There's the ability to move forward and to do great things together. And I'm not saying that we always get along. I'm not saying that we always. There's sometimes that in our meetings that we have, or even in individual times where we're, I'm passionate about what I'm passionate about. They're passionate about what they're passionate about, and sometimes those clash. But at the end of the day, it's not what we want. It's what does God want?
Right. So now, when you came to your board, you were, I guess, to summarize it, you're emotionally and spiritually spent, and
Very much so.
you did that affect your relationship with them?
I would say yes, in that I was letting the relational equity part slide, and or I would not be completely. One of the things that I think the sabbatical has taught me, and just spending time away has taught me, is to be present. And what I mean by that is, if I'm having a conversation one-on-one with somebody, I'm not thinking about the other 15 things going on in my life. I'm thinking about, what are they saying? I'm present in the conversation. I'm there. I'm listening to what they're saying. And I think, definitely being spiritually and emotionally spent had an impact on that. I mean, even yesterday, this guy that I was telling you about, who's a superintendent, I mean, he was like, part of the reason that I asked you about, hey, what's going on, is because you were getting to a point where I didn't even necessarily like being with you anymore, because it wasn't mutually encouraging. It wasn't, something was off. And that's why, he's like, that's why I asked you. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay, good. I'm glad you're telling me this, because maybe for the first time somebody has actually told me why they thought I was off.
Right.
And I'm like, I thank you for telling me that, because I don't ever want to go back there. But yeah, I was definitely, it was impacting that.
Right. So we've kind of talked around about it, but what is a sabbatical?
So sabbatical is extended Sabbath. I mean, put it shortly, that's what it is. Sabbath is rest. It's stopping work to focus on the goodness of God in the land of living and to enjoy His presence. And a sabbatical is extended Sabbath. It is not vacation. It is not. I get to sleep all the time. It's not laziness. I mean, even the word sabbatical shows up in Leviticus and in Deuteronomy, and it's talking about the sabbatical of the land. And that God said that every 7 years they were to give, for a year, to give the land a sabbatical, a rest. And so does that mean, because they were an agricultural society, an agricultural culture, so if they're not working the land, what are they doing? Well, it wasn't they weren't being lazy. They weren't like sitting back eating bonbons and drinking tea all the time. They were doing a work. It was just a different work. I think sometimes I think the sabbatical gets looked at as, and I've even had people say it, hey, how was your vacation? But I have the same thing about people that, when I go on a mission trip and I come back and I I've been teaching the entire time I was away on a mission trip, and maybe 10, 14 days, whatever. And they're like, hey, how was the vacation? And I'm like, it was great. Here's what I did. Yeah. And then they're like, oh, that doesn't sound like a vacation. No, it's not.
It wasn't.
It wasn't a vacation at all. It was a different work, for sure. Sabbatical is that. Sabbatical is a different work. Does it mean that within the context of sabbatical, there's going to be times of resting and literally taking nap or sleeping or whatever? Sure. Of course there would be. Does that mean that I can't go on? I mean, for me, it was awesome because all my kids are away at college or are adults. All of them were home. And we had an extended period of time together that we have never had in 27 years. My daughter had cancer. She had to have her thyroid removed. That ended up being during the sabbatical. But I was able to 100% focus on her and her needs without having to worry about what was happening at the church. And my deacon, my board, was like, it will be a 100% break, to the point that they took my phone. Which I got to be honest with you, I was mad about it at first. I told them, you are not taking my phone. Like, how am I gonna do anything without my phone? They're like, no, you're not taking your phone. And they actually got me another phone, different phone number. I'll tell you what, that was the biggest blessing of the entire sabbatical. I did not have my phone. I could not look at my phone. I had no access. Nobody was calling. Nobody was texting. Nobody was messaging me. I was not on any social media. That was huge. I just remember getting up when we got up to talk about what God had done through the sabbatical. My wife and I were both like, one of the biggest blessings that I thought definitely was not going to be, was the phone and not having access to it. That was huge. So I praise God that they had the insight and the courage to say, we pay for your phone, we're taking your phone. Okay, you can have it. But it was reluctant, I can tell you that.
Right.
But man, having no social media interaction, not being called all the time, I mean, that was massive. I didn't realize how massive that was. And to be honest with you, getting back, I am still not on social media. I have no desire to be on social media at all. Don't miss it. Don't want to be on it. And I'm really glad that let's just say, for me, I'm thankful that the chains of that were broken. And I'm not getting on that anymore. Unless God calls me to. But
we could take this conversation to another direction from that. So
yeah, no doubt.
We'll stick with what we're going to talk about. But
Sure.
so why is it so important to take a sabbatical?
You know what? That extended break did a number of different things. Number one, it gave me space to be able to look at my soul that in a way that I had never looked at before. It gave me the space to evaluate, and then to and then to make the adjustments that I needed to make in my soul. And what I mean by that is in my practical relationship, my personal relationship with Jesus Christ. It gave me the space to be able to reconnect with my family, and be honest with my kids and get honest feedback from them. It gave me the space to do things that maybe I'd wanted to get to, but never did because of time limitations and other things of that nature. But I think one of the biggest things that came out of it too was that people that had not stepped up before, because I was gone, there was the void of me being gone. Individuals had to step up in ways that they had not before, and again, so what I mean by that is they got to see things that I do and interactions that I have that they were not aware of, including my board, including my staff, including volunteers from the church that were getting involved in doing ministry to fill in the gap. And what has been amazing as a result of that is they now have a better perspective of what I do. I don't just work on Sundays. And so they got a better perspective of that. I don't know that would have happened if I hadn't had left. And now some of those individuals are continuing in spaces of ministry that are still very helpful to me and to the church as a whole that weren't there before. And so that was a really great thing that came out of the time of sabbatical. And then just rest. I mean, the weariness, the constant phone calls, emails, text messages, instant messages, all that sort of stuff was getting a break from that was huge. And it really allowed me to be able to deal with my own stuff than having to worry about everybody else's things that are going on in their life.
So you said you went into the sabbatical about 27 years into your ministry. Did you ever take time during this time to look back and see what you've done, see how you had conducted ministry, and kind of just evaluate that?
You mean like in that first 27 years? Or you mean during the sabbatical?
Just during the sabbatical, just kind of reflecting back on the 27 years and seeing, hey, what have I been doing? What needs to change? That kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. And it gave me the space to be able to do that too. And I know my wife and we had a lot of conversations about, hey, okay, we've there's 27 years of ministry that we've been doing. Likely we have less ahead of us than behind us. So what's that going to look like? How is that going to take shape over the next 10 to 15 years? What is God calling us into, and what is God calling us to do? Again, part of it for me was the fact that I was so busy doing, I was missing the being in relationship with God. And so that moving forward was like, okay, what are we going to do to really protect time to make sure that we're being in relationship with Jesus and not just doing all the time. So that allowed us to be able to begin practicing that over that 3-month period, so that when we hit the ground running, there were already practices in place. And that didn't start to happen until probably into the 3rd month. The first month was all like evaluation. Like it was all, let's look at what's going on. I went down to care for pastors, and did a week intensive with you guys, and then we spent the next 2 weeks afterwards down in Florida just to absorb all that and to reflect on it and to really look at, okay, how is this going to translate into our lives, and how are we going to allow what God has revealed to us to transform our soul. So then for the next month, it was that. It was, we came back home, and we actually got to spend Thanksgiving together as a family, which we haven't done, I don't even know how long, because we do a Thanksgiving Day dinner at our church, which we're very much involved in as a family. And so we got to, I got to interact with my kids and ask them about, things of the past and what's happened, as far as me being a pastor and them as kids, and what all, and there were things that God revealed to me that I needed to seek forgiveness of from my kids, and that gave us the space to do that. So for that next month, it was kind of like just realigning, readjusting to the flight pattern that God had given us, and then the third month was really, okay, how is this not only going to be impacting our personal life, but then what does this look like as we transition back into ministry? And again, it gave us the time for that. If we had only done a month, we would not have had the time to be able to do that. I would say even 2 months, we would not have had the time to do all of that. And there were still things that I wish I could have done. I really wanted to go. I have a bunch of friends that are in ministry all over the place. I wanted to go visit some of them and just have conversation with those guys, but didn't get a chance to do that. So maybe that'll be my next sabbatical in 8 years. But yeah, it was. I think it was the perfect time. The amount of time was perfect, and it just timing wise was perfect, which. I don't know why I'm surprised by that. God's timing is always perfect. So,
right.
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges to implementing a sabbatical?
Some of the challenges are, to be fair, we have now implemented sabbatical policies across the board within our church, and the congregation voted on that. We created an entire policy manual, I guess you could say, employee manual, policy manual, that has sabbaticals in it and what that looks like and how often, and all those sorts of things. The hardest part has been people that are against it.
Yeah.
That are like, I don't get one.
Let's talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get one, so why should you? And that's tough. Now, I will say that's been a minority. Mm-hmm. I mean, I taught on, preached on Sunday mornings the idea of Sabbath and rest and sabbatical for over a month. And we had open door, said anybody that wants to come, have conversation with me about it, let's have a conversation about it. Please, if you don't understand, come and talk to me about it. If you don't agree, come and talk to me about it. So I really, really tried very, very hard to say, you know what, we're an open door. Like we're not trying to hide anything. We're not trying to slip something in so you guys, don't know what's going on. We want to be really, really open about it. And we gave them the packet at the beginning. All the way from the beginning, and let people read through it, and then ask questions. But there was still, and some of the voices are some people that have been here for a long time. It's almost as if, I don't know. The weird part about it is that I don't know how to say it, it's generational in a lot of ways. Those that are standing against it and are really being vocal about it or have left the church, it was almost generational. in sense of, well, we didn't get that when we were, in our business or in our whatever, and we don't think you should either, and unfortunately some people left the church as a result of it.
So there were people who actually got offended and left the church because you decided to take, or not you decided, but the board gave you a sabbatical.
Yep. And again, really, really small percentage of people, but they were some of the loudest voices. So,
yeah,
and again, we were really clear. This is not something that we want to be divisive. This is not something that we're wanting, but we feel like this is exactly what God is leading us to do. And we're saying to you all as a congregation, Sabbath rest, sabbaticals are important for everybody. This is what the direction that we believe God is leading us to go in. And I know I can't make everybody happy, and I can't make everybody agree on that. And we had, folks that didn't. It's interesting because, some of the big things, some of the big questions were, well, sabbaticals aren't biblical, and we shouldn't practice it because it's not biblical. And again, I could go into how many things do we do as a church that are good practices that aren't biblical.
Right.
They're not in the Bible, and yet we still practice them. We still do them, and we're not going to stop doing them just because it does say it's the Word of God.
Yeah.
But some of those things, a sabbatical, I can definitely make an argument from Scripture. I don't know what you call Jesus' 40 days in the wilderness, other than a sabbatical. I don't know. He was fasting, but he was preparing for what was going to be coming. He was doing work, but it was a different work. And he needed 40 days. So I'm like, one of the guys I talked to, I'm like, Jesus often retreated by himself away from the crowds and prayed and would get away from people and would Sabbath, and he did 40 days in the wilderness. I don't know what else to call that. And I'm like, and he's Jesus.
Right.
And he needed that time. So I don't know. Trying to convince people, I try to get away from, I'm not going to argue you into believing this. I can give you scripture and verse. I can give you all the reasons why. Obviously I've even shared my testimony over and over with the church. One guy in particular, I was like, so are you telling me I shouldn't have gone on sabbatical and I should have just quit? And so, I guess I'm to a point where I'm just like, I'm not going to keep arguing about the validity of this. This is what we believe God is leading us to do, and we're going to go that direction.
Yeah, that's good.
And
I don't know. I think for me, or I think for some of our listeners, part of them would be going, this isn't worth the fight. I'll just keep going. I'll keep putting my nose to the grindstone and just keep moving, right?
Mm-hmm.
And is it worth the fight? Or the frustration? Or the misunderstanding?
Absolutely. I would not be in ministry if it wasn't for the fact that that the board gave me a sabbatical. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't even be doing this right now. I really believe that I would not be in ministry any longer. So yeah, it's worth the fight. And to me, it's worth the fight for the rest of my staff, the guys that are in ministry, every young guy that I talk to that's coming into ministry, I'm like, you need to fight for this, and as you make it even something that I'll do this job, but I would like to have a sabbatical every X amount, like, and every one of those guys that I know that are younger that were in our youth ministry when they were kids, now are pastors. They have fought for sabbaticals with just getting a job, and some of them already have taken them. And they call me and they're like, "Thank you for pushing me to do that. That's been huge." And that's just in the last 3 years. So yeah, it definitely. Don't get me wrong. I hate seeing these folks leave, and I'm praying that they'll come back. I'm praying that God will, that He's gonna reconcile the relationship and whatnot. But I absolutely believe it and believe in it and trust in God, and He's provided in every aspect of whether it was people stepping in when like our associate pastor was just gone. Again, it was the same thing. Like, people stepped in that weren't stepping in before to help fill the role, and God has multiplied our leadership because one guy stepped away for 3 months.
Right.
So yeah. I definitely think it's worth it.
So let me just say this to those of you who are listening, and if you're not a pastor, I'm talking to you. If you're a pastor has a spiritual weight that you can't imagine. The enemy is constantly attacking the pastor and his family. And if he can make a pastor fail, he can affect a whole congregation. I mean, we've seen it all over the nation where pastors fail and people get disillusioned, they leave the church, and the enemy spends extra time trying to destroy a pastor and his family. And that constant spiritual combat is that thing that it'll grind you. It'll wear you down. And even the best of pastors who are spending time in God's Word, who are walking with Jesus, who have accountability, they still get worn out. I mean, Jesus did.
Absolutely.
And so the reality is there needs to be a season of reflection, rest, and restoration for that pastor, because the scriptures tell us in Ephesians, we're not wrestling against flesh and blood.
Yeah.
Your board is not the enemy. The enemy is the enemy. And so that constant pressure of spiritual battle it's just a challenge. And even soldiers on the front lines, they are rotated. Why? Because you can't battle all the time. You've got to have that season of rest and encouragement and restoration. So I mean,
even missionaries, right?
Yes, right.
I mean, we have 3 missionaries that are home on furlough, home on sabbatical, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
They're not laying around doing nothing. They're not on vacation. They're doing their work is shifted to a different work, so that they can go back and do the work that God has called them to do in whatever country they're in. But they need a rest. Talking to those individuals, they're like, oh my word, if we weren't able to get this time in order to get back and reconnect with family and reconnect with churches and all the other things that they're doing, are they getting some rest? Are they not doing Bible translation or whatever it is that they're doing? They're not, but they're still doing the work of ministry. It's just a different work.
Just a different work. So, is there anything else you want to talk about when it comes to how you taught your church the importance of why you need a sabbatical? Do you think they understood better when you came back than before you went?
Definitely, definitely. And that was, that was kind of I know some of what the board and our staff dealt with when I left was, okay, why did he leave? Is he coming back? What's going on? So yeah, definitely when I got back and was able to share what it was and how we, what we did and the effect that it had, and people that literally could see the change that had happened in my soul. They were all like, "Oh man, we're 100% in this." To the point that people themselves began to practice Sabbath and even sabbaticals. Maybe not 3 months, but they started to look at their vacation time differently.
Right.
They started to look at other things differently. To me that's also part of that worth it, is that people were beginning to realize, oh my word, I also need a rest. I'm working as a factory worker, I'm working as a truck driver, I'm a farmer, I'm a whatever. And they're going, you know what, that I am right there with you. I'm feeling burned out. I'm feeling, overwhelmed, whatever. I need to step back away from stuff and rest.
Well, and I also think it was the catalyst for them allowing the rest of your staff to have sabbaticals, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, absolutely. I went from not being willing to advocate for myself to, oh my word, I'm going to advocate for everybody
Right.
on this. Because I just was like, I've got it. This has got to be something that is good that we need for our staff, and for our church and honestly everybody.
Right.
But yeah.
So how often should we take a sabbatical?
Yeah, great question. What we did was, what we've said is it's going to be every 7 years. Where that, could we follow that after the 7-year thing with the land? Sure. But I think we just decided that, looking at different churches and what they do, it seems like the majority were somewhere between 5 and 7 years. And so we had decided on 7. However, we also put into the language that if something happens that one of us has just, kind of like what had happened with me, a time period of just overwhelming load of things. Okay, we're gonna be flexible in that. And so if a guy needs it within 4 years, okay, we'll make the provision to make that happen. Maybe it won't be 3 months, maybe it'll be a month, maybe it'll be 2, whatever. But right now it's going to be every 7, and then it's also based on how long you've been in ministry too, and a number of different factors. But
Right.
those are the main things, is just how long and the amount of time.
So Jason, if a pastor's listening today and or even a board member is listening today, and they're considering whether or not they need to take a sabbatical, what would you say to them?
I would say, number one, pray about it. Number one, ask the Lord to work out the details, the logistics of it, and to really lay it on your heart that, yeah, this is, I need to do this, and then start praying about, okay, who can be an advocate for you, and who can you talk to about it, to make sure that are my motives right, is my whatever, it's somebody that you can just bounce things off and get some feedback from. I think is really important as well in the process. But and then talk to who you need to talk to in order to make it become a reality, and begin talking about it, begin looking at the possibility, and do some. There's all kinds of stuff out there, resources out there to help with language and with, how do you talk to your congregation about it, and how do you talk to your board about it, and what if you're going to create a policy, what can that policy look like? And there's lots and lots of resources out there. I was surprised at how many there are, but there really is.
We have a resource at Care for Pastors on a sabbatical and why it's important. So if you want that resource, you can email us at podcast@careforpastors, and we'll be glad to get that in your hands. Just request that free resource, and so we want to encourage you to do that. So Jason, is there any other advice you would give to our listeners about a sabbatical that would be helpful for us before we come to a conclusion today?
If you're going to take a sabbatical and you're going to be going on it, I think it is important to think through what do I want, what do I believe God wants to do in this time, and there's nothing wrong with creating a plan for it, but have the flexibility in it to go, okay, this is definitely what the Lord wanted me to do, and that not so much. It's kind of like me wanting to go visit all my buddies in ministry. Yeah, that's a great idea, but it wasn't what the Lord wanted me to do.
Right.
So that part of the plan didn't work. So I think having a plan, having again, just because you want to maximize the time, but at the same time, it's not about overloading your schedule so much that you end up drowning yourself, even in your own sabbatical. That'd be sort of pointless. But at the same time, having a plan going in is good.
Yeah.
And sharing that with people too. I mean, that's one of the things that we did this time with our associate was we gave them kind of the overview of the plan, and then asked them to be prayer warriors for him and for his family as they went. And that was really helpful.
Amen. Well, Jason, we really appreciate you being on the podcast today. And everyone, Jason's the pastor of Harvest Time Bible Church. And where's that located?
Rock Falls, Illinois. So an hour and a half
Falls.
due west of Chicago.
There you go.
So it's straight line.
Well, Jason, you've been so helpful today. We're grateful for your ministry and your wisdom, and we thank you for being on the Care for Pastors podcast.
Ken, thank you. It's been an honor and always is, and I just appreciate you guys and all the ministry and the impact that you guys are having in Care for Pastors is just huge. And yes, thank God for you guys so much.
Thank you, Jason. Everyone, we'll see you next time on the Care for Pastors podcast. Thank you for joining us today. What a powerful reminder from Pastor Jason that God does some of his deepest work when we slow down long enough to listen. A sabbatical isn't about stepping away from ministry. It's about stepping closer to the heart of God so that we can return refreshed and renewed for the work God's called us to do. If this conversation was encouraging to you, take some time this week to reflect on your own rhythms of rest. And if you're a church leader, consider how you can help to create space for your pastor and staff to experience true renewal. Next time on the Care for Pastors podcast, we continue our Healthy Habits of Pastors series by shifting our focus from personal health to family health. You won't want to miss this important conversation. Thank you for listening to the Care for Pastors podcast today. If you would do us a favor by sharing and subscribing to this podcast, it would really help us out. Thank you for joining us today. God bless.